Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting but potentially banal episode of the Alpaca 29er. We're going to take a break from Trailer Park Dino, and we're going to say that this episode of Alpaca 29er was brought to you by Pointy Jim, the pufferfish that has been turned into a lamp. Yep, Pointy Jim just sits over there in the corner and he shouts words of encouragement to me while I'm trying to screw up lockpicking. Right. Moving right along, I haven't really posted a video in a little while, like something like a week. Pardon me. And the reason for that is I had a couple of days where I wasn't feeling too good. I have a sneaking suspicion it was food poisoning because I have a weakness for something called a McGangbang. Now, if you go to a McDonald's, uh, I don't know if this applies everywhere across the planet, but I know this is a thing in Alberta. If you go to a McDonald's and you ask for a McGangbang, what you're looking for is a McDouble with a junior chicken patty in the middle of it. Now, even though I have made great strides in reducing the amount of junk food that I eat, I've probably cut like 95% of it out of my diet. I still have a weakness for the McGangbang. So I ate one the other night, and actually, it wasn't the other night. It was like last Friday. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, I ate one, and subsequent to that, I felt very crappy for a couple of days. And Sunday was one of those days. I basically lied in bed all day. I'm not even going to get into how nasty it was, but it was pretty terrible. It was to the point like I think it was Sunday night. Yeah, I think Sunday night. Yeah, it was Sunday night. I was running a bit of fever, and I had some really strange fever dreams, and it was just kicking my ass. But whatever. I'm back on the mend. I'm feeling human again. I'm able to use a toilet properly. So, yay for small victories. So, this begs a bit of a story, and it directly relates to this little pile of locks here, one of which I'm going to pick because I feel like I owe you guys a picking something to kind of make up for my lack of Stock Lock Sunday videos. So, we'll get to that in a minute. Also too, today we're going hands free because my setup, which is this ugly little clamp thing here for holding my camera, has been all messed up, and I've been having a bit of an issue trying to get it to a good position where I can kind of record things that are going on my workbench, but also in a good position where I can employ the Frankenvice, which one thing I really do like about this, I can just pop it right out of there and it can kind of be out of the way, but I can just kind of slap it back on the base again. And this base doesn't really get in my way too much. In fact, I often find myself using it as an elbow rest so I don't have to rest my elbow on the work surface, which is often dirty with like metal shavings and grease and stuff like that. So whatever, that's just a silly little thing that I do. Another reason that we're doing hands-on, we don't have the camera in the stand, is I kind of wanted to show off a bit about, oh, look at that, look how nice and green it's getting here. It's yeah, you can see the lilies there are really starting to come back, and just see it right over the corner. Oh, look at that! Oh, the tulips are back. Isn't that nice? So, I mean, don't mind the dandelions, whatever. It's just something that happens. And another thing that was kind of a project recently. Um, is been the lock collection and the display of it. Hold on, we're just gonna turn on the light so we have a bit more light here. It looks like the sun's hiding behind some clouds right now. It was actually a lot brighter like a minute or two before I hit record on this. So, anyways, so before I used to have like a ratty white towel and basically the locks were just laid on top of the towel. I already had sort of the prototype of this core stand already in place, and I just decided, okay, now's the time. It's time to finally bring these ideas to fruition and kind of get this lock display tidied up a bit. So that's exactly what I did. You can see here we got some. There's the finger. So we got some 1/4 inch foam rubber with some holes cut in it, just to sort of help stand these locks up so they kind of sit upright, and kind of a similar idea for all of the cores, and again a similar idea for the cylinders. One notable exception, actually there are a couple of notable exceptions, is some of, like, for example, this multi-lock here. I just basically cut out a round piece with another small cutout, just so when I put the lock down, it kind of sits up straight and doesn't roll about the place, making a huge mess. So this has really tidied up my display substantially, and this is a project that's kind of been bugging me for a while. I'm very finicky. I really try to be neat and be organized and have everything laid out. See, look at me. I'm even trying to straighten the locks out. I'm just going to stop doing that right now because nothing good will come of that. I'll end up ripping this whole thing apart again. So, but also too, here we have a couple of oddballs like these Schlage Everests. I actually used a piece of 1/8 inch vinyl and basically just cut the shape of the SFIC out, and that it just helps those two stand up. Because one problem with these is, even though they'll stand up by themselves, if I walk into the room and I accidentally bump this cabinet, these two would fall over, and that drove me absolutely bananas. That had to change. I may at some point consider a small vinyl stand, something similar for these little filing cabinet locks, these little filing cabinet cam locks. I have a couple in my collection. So, because these have fallen down, but they seem, for whatever reason, don't seem to be as inclined to fall over than the Everest cores. I don't know why that is. I'm not getting into the science of it. Screw it. It is what it is. And we've just found a way to deal with it. So, yeah, look at that. What a great. I absolutely love just sitting here and having a good look at my collection. Now, some of these you may notice are nothing fancy, right? Like we have a master back there. I basically kept it because I kind of like the key. It's not because it's an expensive core, and there are a few examples of that in here. Like I got a couple of Weisers back there. Um, some of these are not especially fancy, rare, or high security or anything. I basically just liked the key. So a very good chunk of this display, because I mean a lot of these cores don't really look so different from each other. They don't. A lot of them are indistinct from one another. So it's not really the core I'm collecting so much as I'm collecting the key as well. So yeah, we have some pretty good representation in there. We got a couple of really funky ones, right? Like we got a nice Dom over here. I think there's an MX over there. Somewhere in here is a Miwa. Yeah, there we got a Miwa right there. So I got some funky ones in there, and I think back there is right back, kind of the second Schlage from the end. There's that first Schlage right there, and that second one in right there is a Schlage Primus. So I mean, I've got some fairly funky cores in the collection, and yeah, sometimes I just like sitting here and staring at all those keys. Um, so and we got. Sorry about the lighting. This lighting isn't really the best here, but is what it is. So, and kind of the same thing. These cylinders. I mean, not all of them are really fancy, expensive or rare or anything. It just I happen to like the cylinder, and a lot of these are originally keyed. Some of them I have rekeyed myself, but it was just something I liked and I wanted to add into the collection, right? So, really happy with how this whole thing turned out. I think the only other impending project with the display is I got some stuff on a lower shelf. You can see, well, there's my dual action time lock, which is probably the flagship of my collection. Um, I'm actually going to drop this shelf a little bit because this is just my fossil collection under here. It mostly sits in a box. Every once in a while, I bust it out and take out my magnifying glass and look at the fossil, but we'll just ignore that for now. But I got a fair bit of space here, so I'm thinking what I might do is drop this shelf a little bit more and get a little bit more of my lock collection back in there, because I have some Mortis cassettes, some fairly large ones that would probably fit very nicely in that shelf. So, bit of an ongoing project, but I'm really happy with how this display is coming along here. So we'll shut that, and and also too, I'm kind of right in the middle of some rekeys and kind of sort of reorganizing my pinning kits. So that's another ongoing project. And I finally have enough parts from abloy disc detainer locks that I can basically start a department just for parts. And I have some more abloy locks coming my way, a number of which are damaged, and I'm just going to part them out and kind of add them to this. Because something else that I am interested in is rekeying abloys to keys that I have or keys that I can get, because the keys themselves are actually pretty easy to get, just that they're all pre-cut. It is fairly difficult to just walk in and buy an abloy blank, or just walk in and say, hey, can you cut me a key for this abloy? That's actually a fairly tricky thing to get done around here. So enough about that. Right, getting to the stuff that has been happening lately. So near to my house, there is a an area of townhouse, like a townhouse complex. Now, this complex is very post-war boom era stuff. So it's like it's ancient and it's falling apart, and the whoever the powers that be have decided to pull the pin on this complex. As it stands right now, approximately half of this complex, the half more towards Bonnie Doon Mall, has been fenced off. They are currently conducting the asbestos abatement work in many of the units, because like a lot of older things around here, they put asbestos in damn near everything back in the day. And that's kind of coming back to bite us in the ass, because now they got to pay people like $20+ an hour to go naked inside of a Tyvek suit and go and abate all this stuff. I know this because I used to do asbestos work, and let me tell you, it is not the most pleasant work out there. So I myself don't recommend it, because it's nasty, it's dirty, and although the pay is generally pretty good, it's just the conditions that you have to work in are they're very uncomfortable. And I mean, you're basically doing demolition work, and if it is a high risk containment, then you basically naked inside of one of those little white Tyvek suits, and you're doing demolition work. So your personal protection, including your genitals, are all dependent upon this paper thin suit. So it's perhaps not the kind of work that I'd recommend, but there are folks that do it. and and they perhaps even enjoy it. So I kind of tip my hat to them because I tried it. I really did not enjoy it at all. It was basically something I did for money. Um, right, moving along. So these places are basically condemned. So the amount of locks available around there right now are pretty extreme. And I don't want to mention any names because this could potentially come back on a person and potentially harm their career. So a little birdie kind of let me know where on the site that locks would be available to just take right out of the door because they're done with the unit, they're done with the abatement, and basically the next stage is that they're going to bring an excavator in. They're just going to rip everything down to the ground. So, I mean, I had the opportunity to go in there and pilfer a couple of locks, and that's exactly what I did. So, this is basically what I kept from the haul. Some locks were in extremely poor condition. I just ended up throwing them out, but not really a bad haul. I mean, like I just went in there and removed a couple of locks, and that was all good. And yeah, so I got a couple of rekey projects. I don't think these cheap cores. I think these cheap cores are probably destined for the practice box. Some of these I will actually rekey, and at some point I'm going to offer them up to other enthusiasts. Maybe they could use them as a practice lock. Perhaps they could make challenge locks out of them, because challenge locks aren't really something I'm super interested in at the moment. I am primarily a collector and curator, and picking is often secondary to the kind of the collection and the restoration and the curation of the lock collection. But it's something that still happens. Um, One thing that I did find that was very interesting is one of the units. I think the unit that I got this pair of locks from, because I know these are keyed the same. There was a bashed up old filing cabinet in there, and we have us a lovely. Does that logo show up? I don't know if that logo shows up, but this is a Sargent and Greenleaf. This is a little Sargent and Greenleaf kind of. It's a cam lock, but specifically for filing cabinets. And this was a nice little find. This is actually the one we're going to pick in a minute here. Um, am I finished rambling about everything else? Yeah, I pretty much talked about everything else. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set up the cam here. We'll do that right now. And, whoops, that was a loud noise that I didn't want. We'll set up this crappy thing. I got to get a new setup for this camera. This is not going to work out long term. We'll get the camera kind of set up here. Is it gonna fall? Is it gonna fall? No, perfect. All right, I can live with this. So we'll where are my picks? Oh, right over here. I'm just a gong show. All right, and got this bad boy here, and I'll just start out with the Tomahawk and our regular HPC snake rake, and we'll just go ahead. Now, a lot of these filing cabinet locks, oh, there we go, that one gave up without a fight. Kind of disappointed. I sort of half expected a Sergeant Greenleaf to be substantially harder to pick than a lot of like what I was going to say is that a lot of the locks that I see in filing cabinets, office furniture, et cetera, are really cheap, shitty wafer locks. And I had actually kind of expected this to be a bit more of a challenge, but this one kind of gave up without a fight. Oh yeah, yeah, really easy. So, oh, a little disappointed, but even though this one's ugly, it's still going in the collection. Right. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I've been up to lately. I don't know what else I can say. Wherever you guys are at, whoever's tuning in, I hope that you guys are having a great week and everything is going well in your world. If you like this video, by all means, give it a thumbs up. If you hated the video, give me a thumbs down. And if you have any questions or comments, by all means, hit me up in the comments section. I think that's it for today. So I'm going to let y'all go and all of y'all take care. And we'll catch you the next time we do an episode of Alpaca 29er. All right, bye now.